Hello and welcome to Talk from Superheroes. Hey everybody, I'm Andrew Barr.
And I'm Diana McCullum.
And you're listening to Talk from Superheroes, where every week we discuss a piece of heroic television or film. And this week on the podcast, we are continuing our October spooky scary...
Spooks and scares.
Oh my God. You came right at me.
I'll get you.
You'll get me. We're continuing our spooks and scares. And this week we're going to be talking about Event Horizon.
Perhaps the spookiest, scariest. We'll get into it, but I'm putting it up there on top tier spooky, scary.
Yeah. We will, of the things that we've covered this month, Freddy versus Jason.
Jason X.
The Thing, which is a top tier movie, but I do agree has more of an element of suspense than a proper coming at you scare. But we'll break down what to expect from Event Horizon. We will be joined by our guest Andrew Barr. But before we do want to remind you as well, if you want more of our Spooky Scary Movie Month, over on our Patreon page, this month's Patreon exclusive is Jason X, which is a bananas movie and episode.
It's scary how bad the movie is? Question mark?
We are Canadian, and I have never in my life heard that many Canadian accents in one room that strong. So it is...
If you want to hear Canadians made fun of, ethically by other Canadians, you're going to love it.
If you want ethically sourced Canadian comedy, our Jason X episode, it's up on the Patreon page right now at patreon.com/FromSuperheroes. But today we're talking about Event Horizon, and let's get into it. Let's talk about the Event Horizon.
Spooks and scares.
All right, we have seen Event Horizon, and we are joined by our guest, our friend, comedian Andrew Barr. Hey, Andrew.
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. Our horror expert, I think, is what I would put you into the category of.
I'm a big fan of this genre. That's no doubt there. Yeah.
Yeah. I enjoy when I brought up Jason X. You were like, oh yeah, that's.
Oh man, Jason X is so fun, and actually, I think rips off parts of Event Horizon. Funny enough.
Ooh, interesting.
Scenes in those movies that are almost the same. Having to blow up part of the ship to get away from another part of the ship.
Oh, that actually is extremely similar.
The part where there's a hole in the wall and somebody's being sucked out through the hole and they barely manage to get back in. There's really clear parallels. I've watched them both recently.
Except a big differentiator is that Event Horizon has a largely international cast of not the most Canadian people who've ever existed.
Yeah.
So you won't hear things like Jason, get that machete out of here. You won't hear things like that.
Yeah, Jason X has more Canadian astronauts in it than there have been in history, actually.
Chris Hadfield was in Jason X secretly.
I don't know what parallel universe that takes place in where Canadians are astronauts all the time.
Love it. It takes place in Space University, which I guess is Concordia. But that's a different episode. Today we're going to be talking about Event Horizon. And let's start with the simple question. Diana, let's start with you. Diana, did you like it?
Oh, I love Event Horizon. This is my spookiest, scariest, probably favorite movie horror movie next to maybe Sunshine, which is oddly a similar movie to this one. So I think it's genuinely scary. I think it's really original. I love the production quality. I love the jump scares, but also just the way it gets in your head about what's actually happening and how you can't fight it because these are all really competent people who don't make mistakes and they still all die. It's really, really frightening. And the performances are great. The set design fucking kills. I think this movie is almost perfect. I struggled for a change at the end. I really like Event Horizon and also was very traumatized by it as a child, but still look upon it fondly. So these are...
That's a special place.
Yeah, special traumatized place in my heart for Event Horizon.
So you're coming in with a strong love energy. Andrew, what about you? Did you like it?
Yeah, I got to echo a lot of that. I do love Event Horizon, man. I think it's an awesome movie. As far as sci-fi horror goes, I think it leans more horror than a lot of sci-fi horror does. I think it's spookier than even movies like Alien and stuff like that, even though obviously the original Alien is very tense and everything. I think Event Horizon is the most horror, sci-fi horror that I think I've seen. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was super spooky. Again, I like the set pieces too. A lot of it does kind of look like a 5 Gum commercial, but
what a very specific but accurate reference.
But in a good way.
I think that's more of a compliment to 5 Gum commercials than it is a knock on Event Horizon.
Yeah, I think 5 Gum ripped off Event Horizon, frankly.
If anyone listening to this directed a 5 Gum commercial, get at us because we are fans.
Or at least there were some set pieces left over in a studio that they used or something. But yeah, man, I'm super into this movie.
Nice.
Andrew, did you like Event Horizon?
I'm gonna mirror a lot of this. I'm a high like. I'm not a love like Diana, but I am a very high like. This is one that, similar to what you're mentioning, at the time when I watched it, and I think I watched this like pretty close to when it came out, so I was like maybe in my mid-teens or something. It scared the absolute shit out of me to the point where I was like shaking putting the VHS in to watch it a second time. It had that level. It didn't get that from me today, but it still gets a lot of respect of like incredible set design, a great cast who seem to be having a lot of fun. So I had a really good time with this. It never quite elevates to love. I do think there's like a third heat that's missing, or like a 10 minutes of film, or a little bit more time, or one more pass on the script. There's just a special one last spice that I do think that this movie is missing to make it like an absolute perfect cult classic. But as it stands right now, I do think it's very, very good, and I like it a lot.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. And even Paul W.S. Anderson was like, the original cut was like 2.5 hours, and they told him to really chop it down, and he was like, I think I chopped too much.
Yeah, it does hum along, that's for sure, because it feels like a longer movie while you're watching it, but it is only like an hour and 35 minutes, I believe.
Very watchable.
Which is like, it feels like it should be longer, honestly, based on like how much goes down in that. It probably could have breathed a little bit more.
Yeah, it moves at a pretty brisk pace. Yeah,
it does.
And which is like a very uncommon complaint for us to have on this podcast. Typically, we are fans of like, we think that movies are getting too long and drawn out and are avoidant to editing. And I think that editing makes a lot of things better, but it does feel like this lost, as Paul said, 10 minutes too much, maybe.
Yeah. I think we could have had a few more like creeps around a corner and like, what's that?
Yeah.
Just a few more.
Well, before we fully dissect this, we just want to take a quick moment to thank our sponsor of today's episode. We want to thank our friends over at Uncommon Goods.
At Uncommon Goods, they're going to be your secret weapon this holiday shopping season. You're going to buy something, and then they're going to be like, where'd you get that? And you're going to say Uncommon Goods with a smug little smile on your face. Like I've been saying for like 3 weeks since I got my sweater that I have from Uncommon Goods. Everyone's been complimenting this thing.
Everyone has been complimenting your wonderful dog sweater from Uncommon Goods. I got a fun, unique bicycle t-shirt, but we've also bought gifts for each other from Uncommon Goods in the past. Last year, I got you this fun cheese plate that has a little slide-out drawer that has the cheese knives in it.
Oh, and the cheese knives fit in like a James Bond kind of gadget. It's perfect.
It does feel like how James Bond would lay out cheese at a party. But Uncommon Goods, it is what it sounds like. They're going to have remarkable, truly unique gifts, and when you shop there, you're supporting artists small independent businesses. They're fine products often made in small batches.
Yeah, and you can get art and jewelry, kitchen, home, and bar. There are so many gifts for every kind of person, whatever you need, whatever you're looking for. It's all at Uncommon Goods.
So to get 15% off your next gift, go to uncommongoods.com/TFS. That's uncommongoods.com/TFS for 15% off. Don't miss out on this limited time offer. Uncommon Goods, they're all out of the ordinary. And thank you, Uncommon Goods, for your support.
Thank you so much, Uncommon Goods.
And back to now Event Horizon, a film where, as much as a moment ago I was saying it cut out too much, I think because a lot of stuff was cut out, a lot of what ended up on the cutting room floor ended up in these quick flash vignettes, which are upsetting in their own way. And I think that like it's almost this kind of like the shark didn't work thing, where it's like we crammed 30 minutes of footage into these memory flashes of horrific incidences. And that actually like really messes me up. It's upsetting to see.
Yeah, those were intense and sort of like information overload. It's like a lot of disgusting things all at once, and you can't really process exactly what you're looking at, which I think is good. Like sometimes, like a good rule in horror sometimes is like if you show the monster too much, the monster becomes less scary. And I think that like also applies to these little cutaways because you're just sort of like, whoa, what was that? What did I even just see?
Was that man pulling his stomach outside through his own mouth?
Yeah,
at one point.
Was that gross or was I into that? I'm not sure.
It does make you feel weird things that you're either like, I need to dissect this or I need to never dissect this.
Yeah. It's like 70% horror, 30% like porn-ish.
Well, they did hire porn actors for those scenes so that it would be people very comfortable just being like naked and like around other people on set instead of just like random extras that you're asking to be naked and like pull blood and intestines out of each other.
Courteous.
Yeah,
I think that's a great idea.
I think respectful to a lovely degree, and also like this film, I got to give this film a lot of credit for creating what is a scene of a trope that other sci-fi have now ripped off, which is the folding of the paper in order to explain simultaneous space travel.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure this is the first time it's ever happened, and you see it in like Interstellar. It just happened in Thor 4, more Thor. Like, the folding the paper to be like, it's not a straight line, it's no line at all. They really came up with a classic there.
Absolutely. If I can jump back to the porn actors for just a second.
Please, of course you can.
We all were thinking it was unexplored.
I do think it's funny that somewhere out there, like some actors' IMDb is like Event Horizon, Nut Guzzlers 4. That's so weird.
Just to squeak one in real quick.
Like porn. Actually, really good sci-fi movie. Porn. How the hell did you get in there?
But I think if you've seen Event Horizon, you can probably guess the scene they were in.
Oh, yeah.
You're not Jason Isaacs? Was that you?
It wasn't Sam Neill and Nut Guzzlers 4.
But yeah, sharing a credit with like Jason Isaacs and Lawrence Fishburne, I think is pretty wild. Yeah.
I'm not sure if they went on set those days, but
right.
Although some of them, they did shoot the regular crew other than Lawrence Fishburne for his like flashbacks of what's going to happen to the crew. Because at the very final scene, when like the entity is like, this is what I'm going to do to your crew, and they do torture all the rest of the crew.
Oh yeah, that's true. There are like extra torture, but I think that is some deleted stuff from what they did with the actual crew. Because one of the deleted scenes I know is like Jason Isaacs' character DJ is like supposed to be hanging with his stuff, with his like guts out, but he's still alive and talking and doing stuff. And I think that footage is one of the like flashes that Lawrence Fishburne gets at the end.
Right. I think that makes sense. Yeah.
Now,
also, like, I'm sure like Justin saw some weird shit when he was in there.
Oh yeah.
Justin went through some shit.
I'm actually going to say that Justin going through some shit as early and quick as possible is kind of a mixed blessing.
Because he lives.
He's and also gets to sleep through a lot of it.
Yeah. That's the dude who ends up in the airlock, right?
Yeah.
A very rough initial go, then sleepy time.
Yeah. That airlock scene is good. I liked that.
The airlock scene is great. I'm not sure Justin's really coming back from any of this, though. Like, I don't think Justin's getting back to Earth and he's like, a little bit of therapy and I'll be fine. He went to the chaos dimension.
That is true.
He's got some funny lines in that airlock scene, too, like when he's about to get sucked into space. I think he says, "Oh, it's happening!" It's like, whose reaction would be that?
That feels very much, we're not sure if the CG is going to work and we need you to say that it's happening in case we don't get the blood to come out of the eyes and stuff.
The vacuum of space is affecting me negatively. Oh no.
Something like that happens a couple times in this movie to the point where I feel like it's a directorial choice because he's like, it's happening. And then there's another moment where like Sam Neill is first experiencing visions and he just looks right down the barrel of the camera and just goes,
yes.
He reads every letter that would be in the script of spelling out awe.
Yeah, dude, he's got like a teleprompter in front of him for awe.
Now, we're going with 5 H's?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
And there's a couple of those to the point where I'm like, I feel like that was the direction to be like, if we play it, we're not playing it hammy, we're playing it kind of flat, and that's kind of the tone that we're actually going to hit and sell that in its own way.
Yeah, there's a weird, tiny amount of humor in the movie that is almost like hard to tell if it's intentional. I remember there's one character, I forget her name, but they've gone onto the ship and they find a dead body and its eyes are missing and it's all torn up. And her character has done nothing funny so far. And then she looks at this mutilated corpse and goes, "Corpsicle." I was like, why the hell would she say that? She's just whipping out a pun out of nowhere about this frozen body.
I think I get it,
She just couldn't let that go.
Because she's a doctor who works on a rescue ship, so I imagine they find many corpsicles, is kind of my guess.
Ah, okay.
I don't think they go on a lot of rescue missions where people are
corpsicle.
alive.
Classic gallows humor.
Yeah.
She's desensitized to seeing a corpsicle.
Yeah. She's like, great, a frozen body. I can use my big line in front of everybody. Corpsicle. Which, by the way, does not get a laugh from anyone else in the room.
No, it just kind of whispered, but feels kind of real, like Scrubs level, like things they say
Yeah.
But
in gallows humor.
yeah, it doesn't get a laugh. It's also not even. I don't even think it's 100% confirmed that the other characters hear that, because she's ending like a radio communication and says it in a room alone, and it's like, was that on the radio or to yourself?
That was just for her.
It's possible that it was just for her.
That's my corpsicle line. Now, I was going to say, when you said there were some weird lines in the airlock scene, I did not think you were going to go with "it's happening," because to me, the weirdest lines are how many times they call that kid Mama Bear and Baby Bear.
Oh, yeah.
Because he's like a full-grown man. He's an engineer on a spaceship.
Yeah, and she's not that old either.
Yeah, but Cooper, the guy who like is always in a spacesuit, also calls him Baby Bear. The entire crew calls this adult man Baby Bear.
Yeah.
And I'm just was like a little weirded out. I'm like, this is too much infantilizing an astronaut.
Yeah.
A certified astronaut.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, it also felt like they were making him very like infant-like and walking it back, because what I found jarring about that was up until a certain point they were calling him Justin,
Yes.
which is what
Yeah.
gave me conceptual whiplash. That like Morgan Freeman as the captain is like, get out there, Justin. Justin, you're a great engineer. Justin, put on your spacesuit. And then Justin is in trouble, and everyone was like, oh no, not Baby Bear. And I'm like,
Yeah.
who the fuck is Baby Bear?
Yeah. It's what people calling him Baby Bear. I was like, at first I didn't really think much of it. I was like, oh, okay, whatever. He's Baby Bear. I guess he's the youngest looking guy. Then when he calls her Mama Bear, I'm like, oh, it's weirdly sexual now. It feels like.
It's weirdly sexual. And
What
I'm
have you
also
two
like,
done to each other?
I don't feel like these two have had a scene before.
Yeah, they didn't really introduce.
She wasn't on the bridge during any of Justin's scenes.
Yeah, they didn't
so
establish it or anything.
They hadn't spoken to each other. I guess there is like an hour of deleted footage. Maybe there's a scene where they all have a nice dinner and they're like, he's the Baby Bear.
Yeah, it's just like crushing a jar of honey.
That's why.
They took it out.
It has nothing to do. It has nothing to do with
They
the fact.
split the jar of honey, and
Yeah.
she's Mama Bear, and he's Baby Bear.
Yeah, they took out the she feeds him honey scene.
Now that feels like a scene from Jason X. That is
Big
straight
time.
up. Yeah, that's a big time Jason X scene.
Yeah.
Now here's a debate I want to put out to the table to gauge everyone's reaction, is that the beginning of this movie, before like the inciting incident even pops off, we see Sam Neill, his character, the scientist who invented the black hole jump drive, and he's on a space station above Earth. And he has the quick flash visions of hell before he has gotten to the event horizon yet. Do you think he has seen it before when testing this drive? Do you think it's calling out to him? What do you think that's about? Because he sees the shit before he gets there. He sees flashes of his own eyes gouged out and shit.
I
Yeah.
thought he just saw stuff about his wife.
He sees his wife.
Because he knows that happened.
The wife vision ends with those like one
Oh, she
single
does have-
frame of like, and it's
Yeah,
like,
it
and one
does.
of the frames is the cross window shattered and a bunch of dead bodies floating as if he is being called.
Yeah, I guess it's like the ship calling out to him or whatever, and like for him, he maybe thinks that his wife is still out there somewhere, and that's why he's so like desperate about it.
Oh, interesting.
Maybe he thinks that he can still save her.
I would actually disagree, just only because based on like deleted scenes and what they've said about them, I think there were probably scenes where everyone dreamed their worst nightmare and then it came true. because and that were all cut, because I know
okay.
like Jason Isaacs, like the reason he already had a big scar on his chest was because he had surgery as a kid and they were supposed to bring that up and talk about it, and that's why he doesn't want to get vivisected. I mean, who wants to get vivisected, but he especially doesn't.
Okay.
So I feel like they all might have had like scary dreams that got cut.
Interesting.
And his was the only one that stayed because it was relevant, because he's the one that goes evil and is like, I love the Event Horizon.
Right. Yeah, it does make it seem like he knows what's going to happen.
It
somehow.
does a little bit, yeah. It does give that weird impression of. I like the theory that he like opened up like a little portal at one point somewhere.
Well, you would
else.
have to test it, or I guess this was like the test voyage, but you would have to like power it up lightly somewhere before the maiden voyage.
Yeah,
I
you
would
don't
think.
just send 20 people on a rocket.
Yeah.
That you've never sent alone with robots or something, or dogs or monkeys.
They would have to test it at some point. One strength and negative of this movie for me, first of all, the ship itself, the Event Horizon, it looks slamming. That's a fucking great looking ship.
This thing looks incredible in different ways. Like the engine room looks really, really cool. That incredible green corridor Sam Neill goes in to like fix one little circuit. Yeah, the entire design is so like real and functional, but also just like cool, but a little bit lived in.
Yeah, I almost forgot about that, like that vent that Sam Neill is in that looks like it's all circuitry.
Yeah. Yeah, it looks like just going in there, you would break stuff.
Yeah, it looks like
the pressure of your knees would be crushing important stuff, but whatever, I guess it's fine.
The circuits seem to be on the floor.
Yeah.
It didn't seem like a good design in that
It's
way.
all circuits.
Yeah, and the emergency breaker was way too far in. Like, you shouldn't have to go that far into a Jeffries tube made of entirely motherboards.
Yeah, for the emergency breaker,
Yeah, he was like, I'll fix the failsafe, and then went fucking forever down the vent.
Yeah. He's way in a GoldenEye level.
And he's too deep. He's too deep in there. And then also just like the exterior. I like that it looks like a crazy helmet on a long neck. Like, it looks messed up from outside, and I like how that looks.
It does. It looked almost fragile.
Yes.
Yeah, because the walkway can just like, looks like it'll break at any second, and it does, but like,
Yeah.
but then it's also so powerful. Now, I have questions for the engineer of the Event Horizon, though, because the Event Horizon, like, it was just a normal ship before it went to hell. They're like, this is just a normal ship. Like, it's got cool magnetic things over, but it's like, it's very normal. But that still means there was an engineer who was like, what if we put spikes on the walls? The spikes were there before they went to hell.
Yes, that's true.
I can't emphasize that enough.
Yeah. I think this movie does a good job at using the word magnets to justify stuff.
Yeah, the like
I see
meat
spikes
cutter.
on the wall, and I'm like, they talked about magnets. It's probably something something to do with magnets.
Yep.
Yeah, that was probably not a spike, and the magnet pulled the metal to a point.
Yeah.
Sure,
It's
the
the shape
spike
of-
is a
it's-
magnet, and it needs to be positioned in a certain way, and they need a certain amount of them, you know. Say magnets enough, and I can suspend my disbelief really far.
We all know that the shape of magnets is triangle, so that's the shape that magnets have to be.
Yeah, these are special triangle magnets.
Yeah.
We know if you make a corridor that's magnetic, it has to also be made out of sharp metal.
And spinning wildly. Spinning wildly.
Yeah. It's the magnets that do the spinning. I imagine.
I like that.
They're what's making it spin.
As someone who recently went to one of those spinning hallways, they really do make you really dizzy really fast.
Yeah,
I've been in one before,
This is not a good idea.
Yeah,
No.
it's and even reading behind the scenes, it was like the camera operators were like, no, we can't walk across this. Like the camera operators couldn't do it. They were like, you need to use a dolly rig and we need to set up a tripod. We cannot walk across this and hold a camera.
Wow.
So it was just like we can't do it. The
Yeah.
set's fucking us up. It fucks up your equilibrium.
Yeah, Lawrence Fishburne was supposed to run across it, and he only made it like halfway. Like for that final, like I end up in the core scene.
Wow.
Because he was like, this is too fucked up.
It was moving fast, too, yeah.
So I guess Sam Neill was right. That does protect the core. You know, from humans.
Ooh, from
humans.
I mean, you can still get in there.
Yeah.
It makes you a little wobbly, but
Yeah.
you'll make it in
Well,
there.
you don't want to be wobbly.
I mean, if you got those magnetic shoes, if we're talking about magnets, then you're good.
Now, I do want to say one downside of the design of this ship is that I
Made
think
of spikes.
It made of spikes. In terms
Everything kills you.
In terms of like an OSHA, WMIS, workplace health and safety, yeah, the made of spikes is their version of Death Star no railing. Like it's very unsafe. But because of its very distinct design, which I think is cool, which it looks like a giant helmet on top of like a long tube of neck, and then these wings on the base or whatever.
You described a penis just now.
It's a penis. Yeah, I guess it is kind of a winged penis.
Yeah.
But because of that, I can very much conceptualize where all the rooms are, and I find it very frustrating when anyone gets lost or loses track of one another, which is very much the opposite of this normal genre where it's like a movie like Alien or anything where it's like, man, I have no idea how this spaceship fucking functions. So that when someone goes through a hallway and then like the buddy system doesn't work because you've immediately lost one another, I'm like, yeah, it's brutal. You would lose one another. Ships are crazy.
Yeah.
But in this one, I'm like, there's one long hallway. You have to go through the room at the end of the hallway to get to any other room. So when the lady Peters is like watching Justin in the medical galley and it's like, he got away. I'm like, fucking how? There's 2 doors to this room. This is the most well laid out, geographically understandable spaceship I have ever seen in a movie.
Yeah.
And I don't know how anyone sneaks away from anyone. There's 2 doors you have to lock down. Two doors.
Man. He got out because magnets.
Magnets, bitches. He went to the chaos dimension and he learned even more about magnets.
Anything that doesn't make sense? Magnets, buddy.
But no, that's a good point because the corridor is so load bearing because like Justin needs to get through there to go to the core. That's where Sam Neill has to steal the explosives to blow up the smaller ship. Like a lot happens in that corridor that literally does only have one entrance. You're right. We could just be like, let's like just close that door.
Yeah. Or if 100% of the crew was just like, let's go stand in the hallway together. No one can get lost, and it's infinite sight lines to 2 doors. So I'm like, it is just such a specific design that is the least lending to horror that somehow it works. Somehow it works against its own expectations. It works.
I think it absolutely works because I think the short runtime of like how fast like the movie goes really makes you feel like you are like rushing all the time. Like it never feels like anyone has a minute to be like, let me think through of a logical response to this. But also at the same time, everyone responds so logically and competently and most of them still die. And that's why this movie is so scary. There is literally no, like normally if you watch a horror movie, you're like, this idiot, they ran up the stairs or they did something dumb or they didn't take a second shot at the killer. But this movie, you're like, I guess I'd die because they did everything right. They got there. They literally said, and I mean this literally, fuck this ship and tried to leave, but their other ship was broken. And I love this movie for that so much. It is such a trope reversal.
For sure, I get it, because in other movies, it's easy to be like, why did that idiot go up the stairs? But it's hard to be like, why did that idiot become an astronaut?
He's probably really smart.
They're pretty smart, I think,
And also they're so smart and they just want to leave so bad.
And they're normal levels of smart. Like it plays into that competence porn the same way that like Alien and Aliens does, where it's just like they're blue collar smart, where they're just doing things the way that they should be doing things. They're like, let's repair the ship, let's put someone in the stasis chamber, and it's just like but it's hard to fight the concept of hell.
Really hard.
Really hard. Have you ever tried, Barr? Have you tried? No, it's tough.
Full coward. I don't do that.
Everyone says it. Everyone's like, Barr's full coward.
He won't fight hell.
He won't fight the concept of hell.
He just won't do it.
Not with all the magnets in the world, I won't.
But become braced with magnets. What I also like about this trope reversal, though, is I feel like normally horror movies, it's like one person thinks a thing is haunted and everyone thinks they're crazy. And this movie is literally everyone thinks the ship is haunted. And then the most scientist guy is like, no, it's not.
Yeah.
And that's not usually how these movies work. And it feels like it should make it less scary that they all are very aware it's haunted. But it made it scarier.
Yeah.
For sure. I think it made it feel a little bit more helpless.
Yeah.
I like the line when they're trying to convince Fishburne that he was hallucinating, and then he goes, I could feel the heat. Mm-hmm. That was good.
That was really good. Yeah.
He could feel the heat of the fire from the hallucination. And he's like, I didn't just imagine it being hot. And I was like,
And his
paints a good picture.
And his confidence in himself to be like, no, I'm a good captain. Yeah, I've got demons in my past. Yes, this is a thing I have nightmares about, but I'm also observant, and I noticed that there was heat. So Stork, go get everything ready. What is it like? Smith, go outside and repair the ship. Like, we're moving moving here.
Oh, and also no one hides their hallucinations, which other movies would do. They'd be like,
yeah.
no, I didn't have any. I'm sane. Every single one of them is like, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah, I'm losing my shit.
Yeah. And I'm glad everyone else is too. Yeah, they're very bonded together.
I thought it was a really spooky device that Fishburne's character talks about. The vision that he has is of something that he's never told anyone before. So it's like, how does this other... Because once you realize you're dealing with something that like knows things about you that you've never told anyone, it's like, oh, we're screwed. Like, you would feel so doomed. Like, this thing is... You can't even comprehend what it is. And like, that feels extra helpless. I thought that was good to add some tension and some spook.
And added the spook and also added the urgency as well, like, of him as a captain being like, we've got to get the fuck out of here now, because this isn't a thing where I can get the nail gun and go shoot it dead. This is a concept.
Yeah.
This is the concept of hell, and we have to go.
Yeah, it's cool when it's basically like, we run or we lose. We have to get out of here. That's scary. Yeah. I will say that towards the end of the movie, when it's Sam Neill, right?
Yeah.
When he comes back all cut up as a demon, good old Lawrence Fishburne does throw an honest punch at him. He's like, this guy just came back from hell. But maybe a straight right will just put him on his ass, and I can get out of here.
It stops.
I loved that.
It stops him for a quick second, so we can get the detonator.
Yeah.
It gives him enough of a little push.
He switches to the pipe and then hits him with that a few times.
With the pipe.
Yeah, I think.
But first he's like, good old righty, I'm gonna put this demon on his ass.
No, didn't even pick up.
You gotta respect that.
Didn't even pick up a magnet.
Yeah.
Also, didn't use any of the spikes.
No one did, really.
That is wild that the spikes were set up as these like really, really badass things. And yeah, like we have a big fisticuffs in the spike room and no one gets spiked.
Yeah, check off spikes over here.
Even the woman who falls through the roof of that room hits the walkway and dies on a flat surface.
That was a really good fall.
That was a good
really
fall,
good.
but it was infuriating that she didn't land on a spike.
Yeah.
And I also kind of liked Sam Neill's character being upset at seeing that, even though he's insane at this point. I'm like, I don't know if you're upset that there's one less person to take to hell with you, or if you're snapping out of it slightly.
I think he was snapping out of it slightly, because I don't think he was that far gone yet. It was the first body he'd come across.
I think he was just like, oof. That looks like it hurt like a mother.
Oh no, that could have been me.
Yeah.
I better side with the ship.
Oh, ouchie.
He had the same reaction as all of us watching the movie,
Yeah.
which is, oh,
I know
boy.
I'm from hell, but damn.
Ugh, that's a rough one.
It is a rough one. Now, I want to get back to the hell dimension just briefly, because I also think this is like the scariest thing ever created, because as much as we call it a hell dimension, it's not hell in a religious sense, which makes it so much scarier, because normally hell is for bad people, but this dimension is just anyone who goes there suffers for the maximum amount you can suffer, it seems.
It seems so, yeah.
Probably.
It's basically the plot to Doom.
Oh, okay.
It is very similar to Doom.
Yeah.
The game, I assume, because I don't remember this in the movie.
The movie is like a vague bastardization of that as well, but like, it is like they're mining on Mars and open up a portal to hell by accidents. Yeah. So it's very similar to that.
Yeah, I just think kudos to this movie for coming up with like literally the scariest concept I can imagine.
Yeah. And also like not overly science fictioning it, not being like, and also the hell demons are, we can see if you look at the neurons that are firing in the air, it disrupts the gases, so it is actually an organic life from a different dimension that we only perceive. They're just like, whatever, it's hell stuff, we're moving forward with the plot.
Yeah.
And I always respect when a horror or science fiction movie does that, where it's like, here's the fucking thing, you are either on board as an audience member or you are not, and there is no amount of science jargon that is going to fix you if you're not on board.
Yeah, well, the fear of the unknown is a powerful thing, right? And I think it's smart to leave some gaps for the audience to fill in the blanks with whatever spooks them, right? If you paint too fine a picture, it's hard to be afraid of it.
Yeah, if they come out afraid of crosses and you're like, this is Catholic hell, it's like, oh, I actually don't believe in that or care about that.
Or if they had used the word neurons, like
Yes.
as if I'm gonna be scared and hearing neurons at the same time.
Yeah.
I've never been both.
No chance.
I've never been both.
Yeah, because the second I hear the word neurons, I'm going to be like, I bet we can come up with an antidote for fear or something.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to try to think there's like resolving options when really it is just like an infection of evil.
Yeah.
Which is super, super cool.
Yeah. Just the concept. Just the concept of evil is getting out of
It's
there.
literally just the concept, and it's a fun time.
Yeah.
Now, I have a question. I have a genuine discussion question because I'm not sure what the answer is for this. Now, pretty much everything seemed to just be happening in their heads. And I really, really like that the ship had no power until like Sam Neill kind of turned and started doing stuff physically.
Yeah.
But then near the very end, a real thing happens, and I'm very mad or confused about it.
Oh,
the
yes.
tank full of blood really exploded. Mm-hmm. And everything else was a hallucination and just getting tricked into like falling off like the catwalk for Peters, or like Sam Neill does the murders. But then the big tank of blood exploded. And when the event horizon disappears, she's still covered in blood. And when they get rescued, the tank is still broken and bloody.
Yeah.
And I'm very mad because I think that should have been an hallucination like the rest.
Because whatever has come out of this hell dimension is incorporeal. It can make us see things, and it's very Nightmare on Elm Street. What we see can have an effect on us.
Yeah.
But if a new person walks into the room, they do not see those things.
Right.
And it is up to what we saw to make us go space mad, and then we have to be the puppet that physically harms someone else.
Yeah, I think the best
Until
example.
that final scene.
Yeah, I think the
Until
best
the blood
example
tank.
is like
Yeah.
Sam Neill like sees his wife filling the tub with blood and everything, and then she gouges his eyes out in his dream, but then we cut to reality and he's gouging his own eyes out.
Yes.
I think
Yeah.
that's the best, cleanest example. I'm like, oh, okay.
That was good.
That
The
is
ship,
good, yeah.
the ship is driving you crazy, but it can't physically hurt you. It can make you hurt yourself. But then the tank of blood was real, and I'm pissed about it.
Yeah. Was that the old crew in there or something? I don't know.
Well, it was a green tank, and then it turned into blood. It wasn't always
Oh,
blood.
yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They lose the thread a little there.
down to a 9.8 out of 10 Event
Yeah.
Horizon.
So I'm a little disappointed but also Paul W. Anderson just said, like, he was like, yeah, I just wanted to cover someone in blood.
Fair.
Yeah.
Shining fan, maybe.
Yeah.
It was supposed to be The Shining in space, was
Yeah.
kind of the idea.
Which
Oh, that makes sense.
yeah. That story tracks. Yeah, and this is a very strange and different movie for Paul W.S. Anderson, a man who, since we covered the entirety of the Resident Evil films on this podcast, weirdly might be the director we've covered the most films of any director,
And Mortal Kombat.
as well. And we also did Monster Hunter was him recently.
Oh, was that him? Oh, yeah.
So he's done a lot of video game movies,
cool.
predominantly, and he's got a
Yeah.
pretty rich career doing that, and they're kind of fun and campy, and it's so like this is so against type. This is one of the only ones of his films between like Mortal Kombat, the Resident Evil movies, Monster Hunter, and some of his other work. This is the only one that feels like sincere, like 100%. Like we are doing this with full sincerity and no wink and a nudge, other than Corpsicle.
I was about to.
I could see you.
I was about to drop Corpsicle on your ass so fast.
Hey, it was said with a straight face. They said
was.
Corpsicle
Yeah.
very serious.
Corpsicle
Yeah.
might have been the note of a cocaine-fueled like
Yeah,
networking or movie exec, you know,
It felt like they brought somebody in for punch up and then realized they didn't need him, and they were like, let him get one in there.
we'll keep in Corpsicle.
Yeah, okay, here's your check.
He's the producer's nephew, so
Yeah.
we got to get something in there. So other than Corpsicle, this is like the only Paul W.S. Anderson movie where it's just like this is done 100% sincerely, and it makes me wish that like I saw more of this from this guy's career, where like all of the movies afterwards, he married Mila Jovovich and then made 6 Resident Evil movies and Monster Hunter,
Yeah.
and having a great time making super fun movies with your incredible wife and being wildly in love. What a fucking great life. I can't knock that for one goddamn second.
Yeah.
But I would like to see one more movie from this guy that's just like, my wife's not in it. This isn't about me having fun or a paycheck. This is about me trying to really do something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would be cool.
I can get behind that, but because also he went so far in the other direction. Like the first cut of this movie got an NC-17 rating, as opposed to Mortal Kombat, which is like PG maybe. So it's like, oh, you had some stuff you had to get out of your system, I guess, and then you were like, okay, I can have fun now. All right, it's all out.
Yeah. Although his trademark is missing from this movie, which I'm very thankful for, which is all of his other movies involve heavily looking at a 3D map of like the facility, of like a holographic map of the facility to plan on how to get in and out. He's very strong on clear geography, but one of my biggest pet peeves is I hate holographic maps. They're hideous to look at and suck.
Yeah.
I mean, like you said earlier, you don't need a map. It's a very clear geography of this ship. You got one big corridor, you got an engine room, you got the other end.
Also, I could look at a 3D map for an hour and then be like, I still have no idea where I'm going.
Thank you.
This doesn't help me.
Yeah, there is that. Yeah, 3D is not how my brain works.
It's not how. Yeah, it's not how maps should look.
No.
Like when I see it in movies and in video games, it's like some video games will do it where it's like, here's a 3D map. It's like we could all do a 3D map. Like Google Maps has the ability to be like, do you want to do 3D like augmented reality to see this type of a map? And universally, 99% of the population has decided, no, that's miserable and fucking sucks.
Yeah.
We want a top-down map.
I get lost at the mall. I'm bad at reading maps, so for me that's...
And the mall ain't even what it used to be. The mall's half the size it was before.
Yeah.
Malls are shrinking, guys.
Yeah, so I'm glad that there's no 3D map in here.
Yeah, but speaking of Paul W.S. Anderson, like there is some like directorial choices in this that are just like so awesome. I think the very first like scare, or at least creepy part, when she's like, it's like Peters is like walking through the bridge and she's like, oh, I found a tiny bit of blood. And then there's a lightning flash to like so much blood on that back wall. It is one of the coolest shots. I absolutely love it. It really sets the whole tone for like what we're about to experience of like, it's so much worse than you think it is.
Yeah, that was good.
Yeah, I think that like that is a really good contrast between like at first these characters are perceiving a PG-13 movie while we're seeing the wider shot of a rated R movie where it's like a character's like, a little blood. Or like Lawrence Fishburne as the captain walks in and is like, holy shit, that was a hand. That's pretty crazy, right?
Yeah.
But behind them, unbeknownst to them, we are seeing what the true... It's almost like, it feels like any other horror movie, but the camera just pulls out wider to show you the complete fuckery that's going on.
These guys are fucked.
Yeah.
Yeah. You don't even know.
Yeah, and they don't even know yet.
Yeah.
That was cool.
Yeah, it is cool. There's other cool stuff that like doesn't even seem necessary. Like I'm not even sure like what it was supposed to bring. Like I think one of the coolest things in this movie happens so fast, and it's like there's like the floating liquid before they have gravity. And it's like, oh, liquid is weird in space, and like it actually is weird in space. It's hard to CG it, but it is. And then when gravity came back and all the liquid turned into like normal liquid, like a flood. I was like, I don't really know why you needed to spend all this money on this. It looked really cool, but it didn't add anything. But I'm glad it was here. This flood of like gasoline. I don't even know what the liquid is, but
yeah, it really had nothing to do with anything else.
No, it didn't
It's
come
like,
up.
It's wet there now.
Yeah, it wasn't like a plot point for later. Like it wasn't like when Sam Neill's like, oh, there's explosives on here in case we need to separate the ship, and you're like, all right, so we're gonna separate the ship later. It was very much like, what's the liquid for?
Yeah, little science class in the middle of the movie for like no reason. Yeah.
But I kind of have a level of respect for that where it seems so obvious now on rewatch that it's like, oh, well, the explosives are going to be the big major plot device. It's going to be the separate the thing. And I think even on first watch, that's probably still somewhat apparent.
Yeah.
But when you set up a few different red herrings, they seem like a waste of screen time in retrospect. But in the moment, it makes you be like, oh, there's a bunch of zero-G gas leaking in this environment, and what is that going to do? And it's like, no, it doesn't do anything. What about the spikes in the crazy hallway? Doesn't do anything. But the explosives we mentioned, that's load-bearing. And in retrospect, it seems like, well, obviously that's but it adds a level of chaos to have multiple elements that don't all get used.
Or get used twice, because they use the explosives twice. Because the explosives blow up the little ship.
Yeah.
And the big ship.
And then you think they're done with them, and no, they're back.
Oh, explosives are back, baby.
Yeah. I think I have 2 talking points about the film, if that's cool.
Lay it on me.
I don't think if you work on a space station with a bunch of other astronauts, I don't think you need to wear a uniform. It's not Walmart. No one needs to. Everyone works there. We all know we all work here. Nobody snuck onto the ship. We all went through a really thorough screening process to be here. Everyone knows everyone. Everyone knows what everyone's job is. Uniforms are pointless. Let me wear my own clothes.
This isn't like Luke Skywalker and Han Solo just putting on stormtrooper gear and sneaking in. It's like, there's only 8 people.
Yeah, just wear what you want. And also, it seems that space is pretty casual at this point. Casual enough that it's like, obviously, in current day on the International Space Station, we have uniforms. But once we get 1,000 people up there, I feel like we're easing back on the uniform requirements. I agree with this.
I think once we get enough people into space that they're not constantly zooming down to Earth, and by that I mean like an email call, like when we're always talking to astronauts and they're like, "Hi kids, I'm an astronaut in space, and you got to wear your fucking uniform." I think once we're far enough away that you're not calling kids in kindergarten class, you can't just be like, "I wore my own tank top today."
Yeah.
I can get behind that.
Yeah,
I think Jason Isaacs pushes it a little. He's like, I wear a different vest than everyone else.
He gets a little blue vest
He put a little bit of personality into his vest.
Yeah, a bit of a screwball character, which was another thing that I thought was funny. So, like, let's go early in the film. They're all getting out of the pods. This one lady is just woken up from like cryogenic stasis or whatever it is, and immediately this guy like goes to hand her coffee. The black guy, relevant because he's like, "You want something hot and black inside of you?" And you're like, even in space there is misogyny.
Yeah.
Like,
of course.
There's always these like. I feel like this happens in a lot of space movies. There's these like screwball characters on the ship, and I'm like, these guys passed the psych eval to be in space. Like, this guy has a nudie magazine. He's an astronaut with a nudie magazine up there. Like,
and he's like a full astronaut. He's the one who does the spacewalks. He's the most astronaut out of any of them. And he is, just a little bit misogynistic, calls people baby bear, has a porn magazine.
Yeah.
And it's like, are you like from the miners in Armageddon kind of level of...
Like, this dude has the discipline to become an astronaut, but he can't not jerk off for 30 minutes. Like, it doesn't seem congruent to me.
Yeah, it does seem like they're very much like this dude and like a couple of them, they're playing up different levels of their roughnecks. Like, these are people who took high-paying, high-fatality jobs.
Yeah.
Who are just like, they're not the best of the best. They are people who are like, for $80 an hour are kind of okay if they don't come home. That's kind of where these are sailors from the early 1800s where it's like there's a really good benefit package if you never return.
Yeah, I guess because it is in the future, because like it's just hard to accept based on today's standards for astronauts. They're like, here's this ragtag group of astronauts, and I'm like, do you know what astronauts are? Like, they don't get to be ragtag. You don't just end up on a spaceship.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like we're at like the point where there's like 50 million ships like Firefly or something where anyone can just buy a ship and go into space.
Yeah. And I can't remember, isn't this only like 2040? It's not even that far.
It was like 2047. They did so many goddamn dates in the opening. It was very dumb.
Yeah. 2015 we colonized the moon, and then it was like 2020 we colonized Mars, and then 2040 now we're at Neptune.
Yeah, and it's like, okay, leave out that shit about the moon then. It's not relevant to anything.
It was wildly irrelevant.
The moon didn't come up one time. What the hell are you talking about the moon for?
Calm down for all mankind. Why are you coming at me right now?
You're just sneaking in this brag that isn't real.
We just want you to know, we definitely colonized the moon first.
Yeah.
A brag that isn't real is such a great way to describe it.
I want people to know that in this fictional universe, I colonized the moon.
Fucking
Especially because the Event Horizon isn't even like a colonizing ship. It doesn't come up in any way. It could just be 2040, the Event Horizon disappeared. 2047, it reappeared.
Simple as that.
All you need.
I feel like that's the director being like, let's colonize the moon.
I feel like
he's manifesting. He's like, I'm gonna, you know how like we have cell phones because of Star Trek or whatever. He's like, I'm gonna talk about colonizing the moon because I hope we colonize.
His science fiction vision board.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, I get that.
He also wants a hell portal.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't know if that's the takeaway people are taking from Event Horizon that we should colonize the moon.
Imagine like credits roll and some guy's like, colonize the fucking moon.
But he says
How did you tuned out early in this movie?
But he says it backwards, like a Satan kind of record. Like when you play Dark Side of the Moon backwards.
He says it in Italian, the most devilish of languages.
Latin, I believe.
Latin, sorry.
Yeah.
Anytime Latin comes up in a film, you're like, oh, here comes the devil.
Yeah.
Okay.
The fact that it's not the devil and it is just a regular dude who loves Latin
Yeah.
is actually kind of funny.
I also like early in the movie how like nonchalant Sam Neill is before he hits play on the tape recorder, because he's heard it before and he's like, anyways, here's the last transmission, and he hits play and then it's horrifying. Like it's just a bunch of people screaming in pain and all this crazy shit happening, and you're like, maybe you should have braced them for that a little bit. And he's just like, anyway, here's the last we've heard of them.
Yeah, he acts like it's normal static when it is clearly human beings screaming.
Yeah. And also it's just like, and anyway, there's no way to make any sense of it. And literally a random doctor in Jason Isaacs is like, yeah, that's Latin, dick. That's actually not that hard.
Yeah. Sam Neill was just like, well, it's not French. We'll never know.
I gave it some French. I studied some French in school.
French. I asked an Asian guy I know. He didn't know anything.
Yeah, it definitely had the vibe of like 3 smart guys listened to this once and were like, nah, we don't know what it is, so that's nonsense. Didn't run it through a filter. I think
Gibberish.
Google Translate could have done it today.
Yeah.
And it's not 2047 yet.
Shit. Oh my God. And then all the astronauts as well being like, tell us in English, doctor. And it's like, you're astronauts.
You're astronauts.
You're also astronauts. But they really are playing them as like roughnecks, like of a like they're riggers, they're oil drill workers.
Yeah. Because when Lawrence Fishburne goes around, he's like, this is what everyone's job is. I couldn't help but notice he was like, we have 2 medical techs. There's like Peters and Jason Isaacs are both medical techs. Justin, the young guy, was the only engineer who fixes things. And I was like, this ratio is not good for if your ship has any damage whatsoever.
Yeah, for a search and rescue.
Yeah, you're absolutely fucked. Yeah. You got to have way more engineers.
Yeah, no, they're fucked.
This guy walked out of an airlock.
And they indeed were.
They were fucked.
And they indeed were fucked.
He walked out of an airlock and they were like, shit, we got no engineer now.
Yeah. They go to Sam Neill and they're like, should we bring another engineer? And he's like, it's not going to matter.
I had a fun little vision. It's going to be hell. Yeah.
Bring who you'd like.
An engineer, a Latin interpreter, whatever you want.
Yeah.
If they nasty, bring them.
This ends up the same way no matter what.
I've seen some things.
How many engineers does it take to defeat a hell portal? There's no number.
There's no amount. Magnets, however. There is a number that will stop the hell portal. There is a number of magnets if they're spinning.
Know. At this point, I'm like, are the magnets amplifying it? I don't know enough about magnets.
And flat out, like, the ending.
Depends which way they're facing.
Yeah, like you point them the other way,
gotta
evil
flip
go
'em around.
out.
It's a classic magnet humor right there. That'll always get you. Always get you with some magnet humor. And then clearly the magnets don't work because the end implies it got out. Things are fucked. Yeah, things are bad.
Well, I mean, I don't know if it got out because the other end of the ship was also infected with hell disease. Like, it didn't go to hell again, but like clearly, like when you touched the walls, it drove you a little crazy. Like it's an infection.
Yeah, how do you contain something that's incorporeal and everywhere and conceptual? You don't is the answer.
You don't. You probably destroy what's left of the event horizon.
Yeah, that's your. I did like when Cooper is just like, I'm getting this ship as far away as possible and then blasting this thing to smithereens. It's like, respect, my guy.
Oh, yeah. And Sam Neill was like, no.
That's the move.
Love that.
Well, I'm feeling pretty good on Event Horizon. I've got my thoughts and feelings out. How are we feeling?
I think that's good. Yeah.
Those are my thoughts.
All right.
Those are my feelings, my spooks, my scares.
Well,
also my traumas.
Those are all the traumas. Let's go in for the close where we ask the final question of what would you change? So now that we've discussed everything we've discussed, what would you change about this if you could change anything? Before we do ask that final question, I do want to thank our friends over at HexGaming this week who were kind enough to send us one of their custom rival gaming controllers for PS5. HexGaming at HexGaming HexGaming.com. They make fantastic gaming controllers that are all customizable. So bring some fun back into gaming. They are customizable in the sense that you can choose the color, the transparency, the pattern. You can make adjustments to the paddles. They have different analog sticks that are customizable for like length or size, so you can really get your gaming the way that you want. Programmable back paddles as well. So if you want something to like represent two keys, if you're like, that's my slide jump for what you're playing, you can play like a pro but have fun doing it. Like I got the Rival controller in transparent blue because it brought me back to that like N64 vibe of when technology was transparent and fun, which is a great time.
You had so much fun building that controller, and the controller also looks so cool, but also like a modern version of that transparent blue, but also a little bit of nostalgia. It is such a cool controller, and they also have them from PS4, PS5, and Xbox, so controllers all around.
Yeah, completely customizable. You can build it however your liking may be. Have a look at their website. They've got incredible products, really fun, so you can take your gaming up to a pro level and add a little bit more fun back into it at the same time. So thank you to our friends over at HexGaming, and you can visit hexgaming.com, that is HEXgaming.com, to customize your own today. And as well, before we go in for the close, we'll remind you, as we do every week, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podcast Addict, or wherever you might get your podcasts. It helps us move up the charts. It helps us find new listeners. It's a free way to support the podcast. But if you do want to support the podcast monetarily, you can do that over on Patreon, which is our monthly subscription service where you'll get cool bonuses depending on how much you subscribe at.
Yeah, at the $3 level, you'll get this podcast ad-free and early. Nothing wrong with either of those things. And at the $10 level, you will get an extra episode of Talk from Superheroes every single month. This month, as mentioned, we did it, Jason X, an absolute romp of an episode. And I actually kind of liked it as well. I'm with Andrew Barr. It's a shocking deviation from what you would expect from Jason X. Mm-hmm. And you can only hear about it at FromSuperheroes.com or Patreon.com/FromSuperheroes.
So that is Patreon.com/FromSuperheroes, Patreon.com/FromSuperheroes. And thank you to all of our current and future patrons. And now, let's go in for the close. Let's ask the final question of what would you change. Diana, let's start with you. What would you change?
My change is kind of a change that I think would be cool, but also, like, I don't even think you need it. This is a pretty damn tight, good movie, but if I have to have a change, a thing I might try is I might leave one survivor on the event horizon. This is kind of Sunshine-esque. I admit I'm stealing this from the ending of Sunshine. So, like, they've gone to hell, and then, like, how Sam Neill kind of gets totally transformed. Maybe the captain or some other MEP crew member also gets completely transformed but makes it back, and they're the one who is killing people instead of the ship just driving you crazy. But also the ship is driving you crazy, and it might even be Sam Neill's girlfriend, and that's why he turns. So, like, the first kind of fight would be against Sam Neill's girlfriend, and we kill her, and then Sam Neill turns, and that's the second fight with Lawrence Fishburne in the core, which I think could be cool if just the ship could, like, kind of do more through a proxy person who they've already driven crazy. But I don't think you even necessarily need it, but it might be fun to try out. The movie works really well as it is. So this is a very maybe change for me.
Interesting. I can see what you're saying there. Something comes back with it, or like it has another physical manifestation is a fun idea.
Yeah, because it doesn't seem to want to kill Sam Neill. It wants more people to kill. So it kind of makes sense if it sent one person back at least.
I like that.
Yeah. That's good.
That's a fun change.
Barr, what about you? What would you change, Andrew Barr?
A couple things. I think I would make Baby Bear a literal cartoon bear.
Okay.
I think that would be a lot of fun. You know how the when they cut to the sort of hellscapes and stuff, it feels like 80% like gory horror, 20% pornographic.
Yeah.
I would make that like 50-50.
Okay.
A little bit more pornographic.
A little bit more Nightclub from Blade, where it's equal parts horny and gross.
Yeah, a bit of sexy space fun.
Sure.
Hey, if you're going to hire porn actors,
let's get into it.
Yeah, and then I think I would make Lawrence Fishburne's character do karate and talk about karate a lot. Really mention karate a ton.
Wait, can it be kung fu so it's like a Matrix reference?
Yes, kung fu would be
Pre-Matrix.
fine. Kung fu or karate. And then towards the end of the movie, he tries to use the karate on Sam Neill, and then Sam Neill says karate doesn't work in space, and he beats him up. But anyway, my only
karate doesn't work in space is the tagline for the next great movie. Like you have to do something with that.
Yeah, yeah. I'll put that in my back pocket. For sure.
Hang on to that.
We might have to cut this out so Barr can keep it.
That's right.
If someone else wants to take that.
TM.
Yeah, but my only serious answer, I guess, would be maybe a little bit. Well, they did a good job of not showing too much hell, but maybe a little bit more time in Hell World and a little bit more gore. I'm a big gore guy. My criticism of like every horror movie is like more blood, please. I just really like practical effects and stuff like that. So I would have jived with more of that. So probably the extended version, like whatever original cut they had, I bet had tons more of that. I'm sure I would have liked that.
Yeah, if it got an NC-17, it was nasty.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm okay with that change. I like that. Scarier. Andrew, what would you change?
I love what everybody's putting out there. Cartoon Bear is just a delight. I'm down with that.
Karate doesn't work in space.
Karate doesn't work in space is a fantastic addition. My change would be that I think that this movie is dated and hurt by an unnecessary use of some early computer effects that aren't ready yet and frankly didn't need to be forced to be ready yet. So things like when they come onto the ship and it's like, look, there's like 9 kind of crushed water bottles floating around in the tunnel because there's no gravity because it's space. And like the water bottles don't have the right texture or lighting and it looks like just like a PNG that you kind of dropped and moved around. And it's like, I actually bought into this scene a lot more with the close-ups of the magnet boots and the sound effects and the way the actors are embodying that they're locked in this heavy spacesuit. And then things like, and things as well like the scooped out eyes. I'm like, the sewn closed scoop out that Sam Neill has at the end is a practical makeup and I think looks so much scarier than the CGI void. So there are some moments like that where I'm like, I get that it's like you can't at that year make CGI better, but you can avoid it when it doesn't need to be there.
Yeah, I will say, because his sewn shut eyes at the end look cool. And then there is a couple scenes where they do like the CGI eye holes on people. And I remember looking at it being like, is that man's head 6 feet deep? Like,
real, like the brain's
it looks
gone.
like it goes way back. Like,
Yeah.
I don't think his head is that deep. What are you talking about?
But in a way that's not intentional. Like it could be like, oh, it's like a portal to hell. But like, no, it's just too deep.
That just weird, yeah.
It's just, and also, where's the bone? It's like, it's just all, it is a flesh scoop of Neapolitan is what's happening in there.
Yeah.
I mean, there is no bone behind the eyes.
But it goes so deep that I'm like, there's gotta be.
Well, you would hit brain. I'm like, where's brain?
Back skulls.
Yeah. So just a few things like that where it's like, you know, if you're watching a movie from this era and it has some bad CGI because it's like, this is a movie about a crazy dragon that flies through space. It's like, okay, that was load bearing. You had to use a computer. But this is one where I'm like, I don't think you needed to. And if you just flat out deleted all of those digital assets, the movie is as good and frankly a little better.
Yeah.
I completely agree with that, especially because the exterior shots that are CG'd of the ships look great, and then they weren't ready for the stuff that was floating. Yeah, it looked very fake, and it was all really close to the camera. So it was like, look at these scissors, and I'm like, they look really bad.
Yeah.
Could you put them further away from the camera?
They tried too hard with the space.
Yeah.
They spaced too hard.
They spaced just too hard. Well, I think that's going to do it for us for this week on Event Horizon. Andrew Barr, thank you very much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Where can people find you on the internet and doing things out there?
The best thing to do would be to check out my Instagram. I post about most of my shows there, and that's where I'm the most active on social media, and that's Andrew Barr Comedy.
Love it.
Straightforward.
Love it. And next week, we are going to be back with more talk from superheroes. Next week, we're going to be talking about Crimson Peak.
Oh, we're taking the spooks and scares into November because it's Tom Hiddleston.
Tom Hiddleston, and then after that, we'll be covering Loki, you see. So it's a bridge of spooks and scares into Hiddleston. It covers all the bases.
We have segues, guys.
We love it. We're talking about Crimson Peak next week. In the meantime, if you want to get a hold of me, you can find me on Instagram, Threads, or Blue Sky at Ivamey, IVIMEY.
You can find me on Tumblr at Words of Diana.
And you can find all of our podcasts and everything that we make on our website, fromsuperheroes.com. Thank you for listening, and we'll talk to y'all next week.
Bye.